Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at independent and dependent events and try to get kind of a definition and a working understanding of those terms. So two events are independent when the outcome of one does not impact the outcome of the other. So independent here meaning one not affecting the other. If two events are not independent, that is, if one outcome affects the other, then we call them dependent. So independent and dependent here would be opposites. Two events are independent whenever the probability of A given B is the same as the probability of A. That is, the fact that we know that B occurred does not impact our knowledge of what happens with A. So let's take a look at some examples and see if we can tell whether two events are independent or not. So let's determine if selecting a king from a deck of cards, not replacing it, and then selecting a queen from the same deck. Are those two events independent or not? Well, let's see. First, let's calculate the probability of getting a queen given that we've already selected a king and not replaced it. Well, let's see. If we are going to get a queen, how many queens in a deck are there? There are 4 queens in a deck. Out of, normally we have 52 cards in a deck, but if we've already taken out one king and not replaced it, then the the number of cards left are 51. So there are 4 queens out of the 51 cards that remain. Now let's compare that with strictly just the probability of drawing a queen out of a random deck of cards. So again, in a random deck of cards, there are 4 queens, and in a normal deck of cards, we have 52 cards. So we can see that here, the probability of getting a queen, given that you've already selected a king, is not equal to the probability of just drawing a queen. So these two events are not independent, therefore we would call them dependent. Okay, let's take another example. Let's figure out if tossing a coin and landing on heads and then rolling a 4 on a standard die are independent or dependent. So first, let's calculate the probability of landing on a 4 given that we have tossed heads. And then we'll calculate the probability of just landing on a 4. Okay, so here, this would be the probability of getting a 4 and landing on heads divided by the probability of landing on heads. So remember, the probability of getting a 4 and landing on heads, there are 12 outcomes that we can get there, and 4 with heads, there's 1 of those. The probability of getting heads just from flipping in this event, there's 6 outcomes where we get heads and 12 total outcomes. So simplifying there, that would be 1 over 12 times 12 over 6. Our 12s cancel out, and our probability of getting a 4 after we've thrown heads is 1 out of 6. Now, if we consider just the probability of rolling a 4 on a standard die, there are 6 possible outcomes, and 1 of them is a 4. So comparing, we see that the probability of rolling a 4, given that we've already flipped heads, is equal to the probability of just rolling a 4. Therefore, these two events are independent. Alright guys, that does it for us today in this video on independent and dependent events. We'll catch you in the next one.